as we're trying to scale, you can grow really fast and have no sustainability, and all of that risk will cause death. Okay, so we're going to just say there's death. Is all scaling, no stability equals death.
Welcome back to the Culture-Based Podcast. I'm Dustin. He's Blake. Today, we're going to dive into scalability versus sustainability, how we can balance growth with long-term success, what that tension looks like as we grow as a business. Before we get into that, I want to remind you that we're here to help leaders know what they're about, show where they're going, and develop scalable teams to get them there. Lots of things that we're going to be talking about today are areas that the Culture-Based can step in and help you, and that we've seen success already with the clients that we're working with. So if you'd like to reach out to us on anything that we're talking about today, you can find us on social media at The Culture Base, BASE, or you can go to theculturebase.com to schedule a conversation with us. We would love to chat with you about this topic of scalability versus sustainability. Also, while you're there, I want to remind you that we have an ebook out. Absolutely free for you. Get your free copy at theculturebase.com/resources. It is called the Scalability Playbook. Interesting. We're talking about scalability today. So we have a whole playbook for this that we want to give to you absolutely free. Go to theculturebase.com/resources to pick up your copy today. All right, Blake, let's get into this thing. Tell us what the problem is with scalability versus sustainability.
Yeah. And before we dive into this, we want to kind of define a little bit of words here. When we talk about scalability and sustainability, you're going to hear us also talk about, when it comes to scaling, growth, right? And when we're talking about sustainability, really it's stability, right? And making sure that it's lasting, it has the lasting ability. And so when we talk about the problem with scaling and stability or sustainability, one of the problems is that we've got to be able to understand that the long-term success of your company means that this happens healthily. Like this is almost like both of these, where these two things meet, is health. Okay. And so as we're trying to scale, you can grow really fast and have no sustainability, and all of that risk will cause death. Okay. So we're going to just say there's death. Is all scaling, no stability equals death. Okay. Now the flip side, then you got all the people who love stability and love sustainability, and they're like, see, you're going to die. Okay. We're going to pause for a second, because here you're all about sustainability, and exactly like it is, you're going to die too, because now the world's going to pass you by. Things are going to change. You're going to become irrelevant, and it's going to cost you everything. Risk. You wanted sustainability, you wanted stability, but by not focusing on any growth, you risked, and you didn't think you did, but doing nothing is doing something. And that's what we did. Okay. So the big problem here is we've got to balance these two mindsets. Which one's better? There is no perfect formula. If you came here looking for a perfect formula, what's more important is you understand the pieces. And we'll get into that when we get into the meat of this here today. But we've got to be able to maintain who we are as we grow in a certain way. Some things do change. There are parts of us that will change. But when it comes to our core values, the things we hold true, are we going to be the same person in a healthy way that comes out of this tomorrow? So first, you got to maintain the core values during any expansion. You got to understand all your resources. Do you put all your focus in growth? Do you put all your focus in stability? The personalities that you build in your team, that's this. Okay, there are some people who were made to grow and made to push and made to create opportunities. That's wonderful. And they will go and burn the world down if it wasn't for the other people whose personality is, hey, let's look at this from a different angle. Do those types of personalities get along hunky-dory? Not a chance. Not a chance, man. They fight all the flipping time. But we got to understand that balance is healthy. And we'll get into this more, but we need to manage our resources effectively as we grow. And the big reason that we need to manage this, and part of balancing and understanding that management is balancing, is that balance doesn't ever come. Balancing is the verb. Okay, balance may be a noun. It's a thing that exists. One of the biggest foolish, false items in the world is that there is such a thing as true balance. And I think that there probably is, but the act of balancing is the life we're living together, vision and the direction we're taking. So the problem is we want to be able to figure this out. Otherwise, one full extreme at all times brings burnout and overextension. We cannot have that.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to be honest with you. When you talked about doing nothing, my mind immediately went to one of my favorite quotes, and I'm going to read it right now, just for everybody. This is I'll let you figure out who it is, and I'll tell you maybe if you figure it out during it. I'll tell you at the end. All right, ready? Doing nothing is not as easy as it looks. You have to be careful, because the idea of doing anything could easily lead to doing something that would cut into your nothing, and that would force me to have to drop everything.
That's the best. Who said that?
Jerry Seinfeld.
That's awesome.
It's a bit Willy Wonka, but I love it. Anyway, moving on. So that's the problem, right? But the solutions we want to lay out for you, starting with implementing scalable infrastructure. I love infrastructure. It's my favorite thing. I'm a builder naturally, and I love the infrastructure part of the building almost as much as the sexy, like, outer layers and all the other things and bells and whistles that you get to put on it, because the infrastructure that you implement into your organization is what's scalable. It's the bones, right? It's the pieces of steel and that are welded together, and we're like, yes, everything's going to kind of rest on this. These are systems, processes, and technologies that can grow with your organization. Don't just invest in systems, processes, and technologies for today. Invest in the ones and create the ones that are going to help you grow as a business. Secondly, align growth with core values. I know you're sick of hearing about core values on the Culture Base, but you tuned into the Culture Base, and that's what you're going to hear.
It's your fault.
It's your fault. I'm telling you, align growth with core values. If your growth strategy doesn't align with your values, then neither of them mean anything, and neither of them are sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another area we've got to do is we got to focus on sustainable growth metrics too. And the idea here is this: if you took a child, your own child, okay, and they were in front of you and you're like, here's a 50-pound weight, and you grab that weight and you handed it to that child and they fell over and you were like, what the heck? Why can't you do this? You would be a lunatic. Okay. However, if you worked with that child over the years to grow the muscle, to grow the bone structure, to grow all these things, and you said, you know what, this year, the big goal is here. We're going to try to be able to lift a 5-pound weight. Okay. We're going to try to grow to this point. We're not going to go from weightlifting to skydiving. Okay. We're going to stay focused and create metrics around how we grow to those points. You're going to go farther in scalability because you're going to build the strength, the bones, the people around you who can make this happen. But if you don't take the time to do that, you're going to destroy people. Okay. One of the things I want to throw out there, we talk about this with innovation a lot. Innovation and scalability, I really think are like sisters, and they're both after the same thing. And I think that when you're scaling, you really need to look at the 70-20-10. 70% is focused on the core things we already do. Okay. We're not trying to jump outside of that. We're creating good scalable metrics that are aligned with 70% of the core of what we do. 20% is going to go to adjacent things. Maybe, hey, maybe we scale over here or try this out. And 10 are those transformational areas that are really outside of what you do, but you're not putting all your attention on that kind of scalability and getting off kiltered or way imbalanced, you're creating good sustainable growth metrics. Okay.
Yeah.
You're also focusing your resources strategically where they need to go. Okay. Because when you can focus and you can break your vision into a way, your scaling vision into a way that's sustainable, then you can go, okay, now we're going to put all our 70% of our resources here, 20% here, and 10. Okay. We're not getting 20 people on this idea right here, unless it's maybe a whole nother business concept and we've worked through it and we've proved it and we've shown how it can align with our core adjacent and transformational ideas. Okay. So you got to make sure that you're allocating your resources very strategic.
Right. This is what he's talking about here with resource allocation. This is the pure definition of putting your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
If you're saying this is where we're going and you want to grow and sustain in that vision, right, that we talked about last week, then you have to put your money where your mouth is. You can't put your P&L at the end of the day, your budget is going to show you exactly where you are growing and where you are sustaining.
Yep.
Right? Because you've decided this is where we are putting the effort. So like Blake said, 70, 20, 10. That's amazing. Last one I want to mention here too, before we move on to some action steps, is in order to balance the tension between scalability and sustainability, is you have to promote a balanced work environment. And I love what Blake said here earlier, that balance is not an arrival. Right. It's an act. It's a verb. Right. We're balancing. And there are times when it leans one way over the other. And there are times when it leans back the other way. That's balance. Balance isn't perfect harmony all the time because we don't live in a perfect world. Like the things happen and we have to go this way, and other things happen and we have to go that way. But if you can resist the urge to lean heavily on one side of that scale over the other and just stay there for 90% of the time, then you can actually experience sustainability and scalability at the same time, because it's a balancing act. It is a verb. So promote a balanced work environment.
Yeah. All right. So moving on into our action steps, let's get to what we do with this. First thing, and all my scalers, all my personality, who's like, all right,
where my scalers at?
All my scalers, where you at? Holla. Okay, everyone's probably like, here we go. Let's see it. You're going to hate this. Okay. So we need to look at what we're currently doing and evaluate our current processes and current systems. And we need to go through and see if that still makes sense. And everyone just went, okay, I get it. But the reality is, if we're going to focus on scaling and we need to be healthy in the 70% of what we already currently do, we need to really look at it. And part of scalability, okay, and I want to challenge those who are trying to scale and grow by adding, that's way harder to do than cutting. And this isn't about cut all your people. If you just heard that, you haven't been listening to this podcast. What I'm saying is cutting what doesn't make sense, cutting what will not get you there. And part of usually when we're growing, we're adding, we're putting things together, we're putting new instead of what do we actually need? Like I love the story of Michelangelo working on what I think the David or one of those pieces. What he talked about was as he was molding this out of this stone or whatever, granite, chiseling away. What his point is what we're trying to get to is already there. I've got to get rid of all the stuff that doesn't matter. Okay. And part of the gold and goodness of true scalability is knowing what matters. So sorry, leadership, this isn't sexy, but it is if you know what you're trying to get to. Auditing your current systems, processes is going to be what gets you there.
Yep. You're also going to set clear and balanced growth goals. Again, we talked about that balance, right? And last week we talked about kind of setting metrics and KPIs towards that vision and towards those goals, but they're going to be clear, right? We talked about that last week a little bit, but they're also going to be balanced, which we just talked about earlier in this episode. So if you can balance the KPIs with long-term health, like employee engagement, customer satisfaction, resource management, then you're going to start to see scalability and sustainability. Also, because we're culture-based, we're going to tell you, you need to communicate the core values during every single growth discussion. I'm just going to say core values need to be a part of most every discussion, period, but specifically in a discussion about growth. If we're talking scalability, you got to bring in the core values to that. So incorporate that into your regular vocabulary when you're talking about growth.
Yeah. And your core values can mature too. Okay. So as you're scaling, as you're growing, a lot of times if I said your core values change, everyone's mindset just went to it changes from a dog to a whale. That's not what I'm saying. What change also is transformation. Okay. So it can go from a dog to a wolf to a whatever. And that kind of transformation is the core values we're talking about. So being able to say to your team, hey, we're growing and we're about to go to this next level. Who we are isn't going to get us to where we need to go. We need to transform and grow. But how does our core values change in this time? How do they transform? How do they mature? How do they become an adult in this next stage?
It's intentional evolution.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But if you don't ask that question, that's when we kind of change for the worse, because we become responsive to our environment instead of intentional of how we walked into it. So kind of transforming action steps, that's leadership focus. Going into our team members, we got to identify the areas for our personal and team growth within this. Like we got to look for ways that all our team can contribute to what this scalability is. And it won't be that everyone comes up with the idea from a horse to a vehicle. Okay. It's going to be small little steps and small little adders and ideas being plural instead of singular. So those kind of things, when you bring everyone into the mix, you get a buy-in. Okay. When you bring only a few people into the mix of scalability and sustainability, then you get lopsided. Okay. So we gotta go together on this one.
Yeah. And if your team member focusing on efficiency in your daily tasks is the small steps to scalability and sustainability. I'm the nerd that loves constantly evaluating like how efficient are my daily tasks. Like Blake and I constantly have this conversation. It's an ongoing conversation about personally and professionally how we can take on what we need to more efficiently. That should be something that's constantly rolling through your brain. It's not just to set it and forget it, but you're always constantly focusing on how efficient can you be in your workflows with tools and techniques that boost productivity. Lastly, for the team is you want to provide feedback on the scalability, right? Anytime that you have an opportunity to provide feedback, you have an opportunity to provide scalability. Feedback, scalability. I want you to associate those words together as much as possible. All right. So I think those are some good action steps for us in this episode. So go out there, focus on getting the balance, the verb of that tension between scalability and sustainability. You can have both. And I want to just say, if you need help with this, we would love to help you with this. This is the stuff that we thrive in. So reach out to us, theculturebase.com, or on social media at theculturebase, BASE. We would love to help your team both scale and sustain what you have set before them in your vision. All right, next episode, delegation strategies for growing leaders. Let's level up, folks. Let's get after it. Cannot wait. Episode 63 will be with you next time on the Culture Base Podcast. Have a great week.